Briksza and Matthew Tickal. We're calling his deck a 4-color right deck, so that makes sense. Cryptolith right, of course, a 2 of in it. Correction, actually, no Panharmonicons in it, so we'll go ahead and get to the match, though. Rudy starts off on a turn 1 Attune with Aether.
Tickal probably hoping that by some miracle Rudy is on green-red beatdowns and
the Pummeler deck? He would like that.
Gonna get some bad news in a minute here.
This deck just Tickal's deck full of different value cards. Now he does have 2 copies of Thought-Knot Seer in the main. One way he does win is he has the Brood Monitor, Zulaport Cutthroat, Eldrazi Displacer combo in the deck, and Eldritch Evolutions to find it.
You can go infinite that way if you can survive to that. And it's tough for Tickal's deck to actually sabotage itself on an Emrakul deck a turn as well.
Puzzle Knot for Rudy on turn 2, then he plays a Vessel and passes. He's up to 5 energy. Tickal's turn 2 play was Smuggler's Copter, and if you're in Rudy Briksza's seat, you have to think something's up. Island into Blossoming Marsh, Smuggler's Copter, this is off the radar.
Probably haven't seen this one before.
How about Plains, Eldrazi Displacer, Swing? Rudy will go ahead and harness Lightning down the Smuggler's Copter.
That puts him off of Vessel mana. Something I was going to point out, Tickal does have that Thought-Knot Seer in his hand and an Aether Hub to cast it. He was on the draw, but looks like Rudy does not have the Marvel.
Yeah, Rudy's going to play another Harness Lightning and another Vessel. No land, so just does the second turn over again. 4th land from Tickal is the Aether Hub. He casts Thought-Knot Seer, Servant of the Conduit, and 3rd Vessel. This is great, except for the fact that Rudy's Marvel's kind of on the board because it's hidden in those Vessels, right?
Yeah, he does need to find a 4th land and the Marvel, but he'll be able to get a draw step plus the Vessel activation on the following turns here, and still at 20, so Tickal's got some work to do.
Tickal goes and takes a Vessel. So Rudy will now crack one of his 2 Vessels, finds a land. Looks like he's going to try to go again to find that. And he will play Servant of the Conduit. That gets him up to 7 energy. So now if he finds Aetherworks Marvel, he can go for it.
Rudy had to pass on an Ishkana to find the land there, and because he is kind of stalled on lands here, he had to do that. He would have really loved if he could just take that and cast it.
And I'm just loving Matthew Tickal's deck over here. You look at his hand, Pilgrim's Eye, Reflector Mage, Duskwatch Recruiter, Cryptolith Right. These are, this feels like last season. These are cards I haven't seen for so long.
Tickal's a big fan of Pilgrim's Eye. I love a Pilgrim's Eye, but I don't think I even like it as much as he does.
Thought-Knot Seer hits Briksza down to 19. Tickal is going to play Pilgrim's Eye, get a land, play Duskwatch Recruiter. You see he's shortcutting a bit there. As long as he has a basic land in his deck, this works. And
seen at least a forest here.
Yeah, he does. 2 forests, 1 swamp, 1 island, 1 plains.
And a wastes.
And a wastes. You can Pilgrim's Eye for that. Rudy plays a land. It's Botanical Sanctum, plays a Puzzle Knot, and passes. If that land was untapped, he could have tried to Marvel that turn.
Yeah, would have been able to crack the Vessel, try to find that, and add the Servant. So technically you would have 6 mana, though just 5 with the land being tapped.
Rudy at 10 energy, and he has an end-step Vessel. If that Vessel finds an Aetherworks Marvel, something that Rudy plays, 4 of, this is going to be tough. He's at 22.
Now, if Tickal had untapped land Displacer on this turn, that would get more interesting because he'd be able to start blinking the Thought-Knot Seer.
Oh, you're right.
But it does not look like he has that.
Cryptolith Right is going to be the play. Pilgrim's Eye looks like it's going to make some mana. He's going to cast Grapple. Gets 3 cards in the graveyard. I guess he can get back the Displacer now. He's a little late, though. He will get back Eldrazi Displacer and cast it. Thought-Knot Seer swings Rudy's to 18. But Tickal had to tap out here. Now Rudy will crack Vessel. Servant, land, plain Chandra, Tormenting Voice, so that does not work. He can get Chandra, Torch of Defiance, so it's not a miss for Briksza.
And with this board setup here with that Displacer, there's a lot of pressure on Briksza to use that Chandra to get that off the table because it can actually really undo a lot of what Rudy's up to.
Yeah, Rudy Briksza will play the Chandra. -3 to kill Thought-Knot Seer. Rudy draws a card. He draws Emrakul, the Promised End, plays a land and says go. And that is his 6th land, and with a Servant in play, you got to start wondering just where Rudy's at. Sorcery, land, enchantment, creature, instant. That's 5. If Matthew Tickal kills the Planeswalker, Rudy has enough mana for the Eldrazi.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, it provides 2 red mana by ticking up.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, right? Rudy starts counting his graveyard, and you're like, I wonder I wonder what that card he drew was.
What could this possibly mean? Oh, he counted past 4 card types, you say?
Yeah, so 6 lands in play, plus that Servant, that's 7. And then the 5 card types, soon to be 6. That's enough. How bad's the damage if Rudy makes the Promised End?
So Tickal does have the option available to kill the Chandra and blink the Servant on upkeep with the Displacer. That would keep Rudy off of the mana.
Swing. He plays Ishkana and makes spiders and attacks on the Chandra, says go. I guess if he wanted Emrakul insurance, he would have had to leave up Displacer mana. And so we untap. Rudy casts the Eldrazi. We go to Matthew Tickal's first turn. This one's controlled by Rudy. Matthew's last card is a Reflector Mage. He draws a land. Now, Reflector Mage can only hit your opponent's creatures, so there's not much damage that Rudy can do with that one. But he gets to at least kill one of Tickal's attackers, I suppose.
Yeah, I have to imagine that the Displacer is going to die in combat here. That's really Tickal's way to punch through this. He can start displacing the Emrakul. It is a cast trigger to Mindslaver, so it does go toe-to-toe with that.
He's going to go ahead and displace away a spider, attack with the Displacer, and yeah, the Duskwatch Recruiter is going to swing in too. Rudy does not want to leave Matthew with either of those.
Yep, that'd be a way to find more Displacers and try to break through that way.
Oh, wow, okay, Displacer hits into Emrakul. And casts Reflector Mage on the Servant. No, he leaves him Duskwatch Recruiter. I'm a little surprised.
I suppose he wanted to get the Reflector Mage out of Tickal's hand so it doesn't just bounce the Emrakul and allow Tickal to get in a bunch of damage on the following turn.
Maybe. We'll see. All right, so Matthew Tickal is going to go ahead and spin for Voldaren Pariah, sacrificing 3 creatures to make Rudy do the same. Jeez. What? This deck's great. What is this? Yeah, that's... Whew.
Like I said, every top deck's a roller coaster. It could be anything.
And a big swing here from Tickal. We'll drop Rudy to 8. Pass of the turn. Rudy has not found a Marvel yet. Tickal's going to recruit some more friends here with the Duskwatch Recruiter. It's about to flip. Rudy did not play a spell.
Yeah, Rudy's got a couple puzzle knots, but really no way to actually play back into this game as of yet.
Upkeep. Will Tickal want to find more allies before the Recruiter flips? No, he will not. A draw here. Swing for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, yeah, 14. 2 puzzle knots is not going to save him. But Spawning Bed might. Here's 3 blockers. All right, gives Rudy another draw. I guess all he needs is a Marvel.
Yep, that'll get him to start going here. Plenty of energy to start activating that.
It looks like Tickal may have missed the Spawning Bed.
I think that Tickal missed the Duskwatch activation as well. Really nothing going on in his hand.
Oh, I think he just thought that Rudy was dead. He counted
felt
14.
like the game was over.
And Rudy draws Marvel. Matthew's going to be punished huge for this. Here's 6 cards. Ishkana is the best one so far. Whirler Virtuoso, Ishkana, and Chandra. No Eldrazi here, so it looks like Matthew Tickal may still be okay. Ishkana is the cast from Rudy. He'll get 3 spiders. It is his second spell of the turn, so the Kralin Horde will flip back into Duskwatch Recruiter.
Yeah, he does have those puzzle knots on the battlefield, so he'll be able to get back up to activate the Marvel again on his following turn, assuming he gets another turn.
Rudy gets drained for 1 on end step, but he gains 3 off the puzzle knot. Yeah, this is huge. And a big miss from Matthew Tickal, maybe spinning there, that he missed those activations thinking Rudy was dead.
Yeah, given that he just has the Ishkana and no Spiderlings, using the mana for that activation was not very effective.
But Matthew Tickal will draw. So we're holding on for a second here. Now Tickal draws for his turn. Zulaport Cutthroat appears to be the draw from Tickal. Okay, now that's interesting. Is that enough to be lethal? Let's see, here's the Cutthroat. Rudy's at down to 4. Yeah. So lethals are correct here. Rudy was at 2 last turn. We have to apologize there. We didn't have that on screen. So Rudy was at 2. On end step, Matthew drained him with the Ishkana, and then Rudy used Puzzle Knot to go to 4.
Okay.
And here's a swing. Now this all makes more sense. Here's a swing with everything from Matthew Tickal. With Rudy at 4, this is a really difficult block for him. You see he puts 3 creatures there. Says, well, they're all going to die. I'm going to take the damage off one more card. So Rudy down to 2, just confirmed there.
And once again, there's no Kozilek's return for Briksza. He's not really going to have a way to clean up this much stuff. Tickal should be taking this one pretty quickly here. It looks like
a bunch of chump blocks from Rudy Briksza.
Ulamog was found with the Marvel, but that's definitely not going to be enough.
And Rudy had to, Ulamog, great, would have been great earlier.
Looks like Emrakul in the mix as well, but neither of them are going to be enough.
Well, Rudy's at 2, and Matthew has 7 creatures and a Zulaport Cutthroat.
Still an Ishkana to pluck away as well.
Yeah, there's just so many chip shots here from Tickal. Well, he'll go with Ulamog and get Abolisher of Bloodlines and Zulaport Cutthroat. Then from hand, it looks like he can cast Ishkana, making enough blockers, perhaps. Servant, and and the Spider. Okay. He'll pass, actually.
Leaving up mana for that puzzle knot.
Yeah, that is a maybe better life gain. We go back to Matthew Tickal. Can he find 2 more damage here? He's got that Ishkana, but it's the only Spider. So that drains for 1.
Copter can chip in for 3. That'll blank the puzzle knot.
Yeah, that seems pretty free. Well, looks like we might have a spell coming here from Matthew Tickal. He's going to Duskwatch Recruit. Doesn't find anything. He still has enough mana to activate Ishkana on end step. So he's going to crew Smuggler's Copter. Swing everything. It's just, Rudy is just playing the board right now. So he'll gain life, go to 5. By tapping that mana there, Matthew does not have the ability to activate Ishkana anymore.
But 4 attackers versus 2 blockers. The Copter connects for sure. Looks like 5 damage.
Yeah, and that is 5. Matthew Tickal does get game 1 here with 4-color right. Ton of stuff going on in this matchup. Matthew Tickal's deck is just wild here.
Anything could happen.
Yeah. A good recovery there by Matthew Tickal. Swinging on what he believed was a lethal board, missed a spawning bed, which looked like for a second there that it could have cost him the game. Rudy has a timely top deck of Aetherwork Marble.
Yeah, game went on a little bit longer than expected.
Yeah.
Tickal able to pull it out. I imagine that this 4-color right deck is kind of difficult to play with how much stuff is going on. You don't really know what the top of your deck's going to be with so many varied one-ofs. The selection in Recruiter certainly helps you sculpt game plans.
All right, so let's start with Rudy Briksza's sideboard. We have 2 negates, 2 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Tireless Tracker, 2 Kozilek's Return, a Root Out, that's the destroy an enchantment or artifact that investigates, an Appetite for the Unnatural, that's another naturalize effect, a Natural State, that's a 3rd different one, World Breaker, that's that's 4th one, 2 Plummets, and a Cigar to Herod's Grace.
I think that we're looking at 2 Kozilek's Return and really nothing else that we're interested in. It's possible that Rudy thinks that there's some Panharmonicons in Tickle's deck. And he's
that would make sense.
You can also bring in Natural State to deal with the Cryptolith Rite as well. That's a potential option, though mostly we're just looking at these Kozilek's Returns to keep these creatures clear.
Yeah, one of the nice parts about a Cryptolith Rite deck is, while it's good in the deck, it's not really worthy of that kind of sideboard hate, right? I mean, Matthew only plays 2 in the deck in the first place.
Right. You would almost have to believe that the Panharmonicons were in there to bring in these 3 mana effects.
Yeah. So on Matthew Tickal's side, he's got 2 Plummets, 3 copies of Ulfenvault Mysteries, a Distended Mindbender, a Natural State, a Reality Smasher, an Anguished Unmaking, another one of his own Ishkanas, a 3rd Thought-Knot Seer, 3 negates, and then his own naturalize effect to his own is a copy of Mockery of Nature.
So the negates are slam dunks here. You want to be able to get under the Aetherworks Marvel. He has some pretty effective ways to combat well through Ishkana. Of course, Voldaren Pariah helps a lot there. He can bring in some number of these naturalized effects to get a Marvel off of the table. I think that that's totally reasonable. He wants to keep his creature count relatively high, of course, because of Cryptolith Rite, Duskwatch Recruiter, that kind of stuff. So mostly I'm just looking at the negates, and the Distended Mindbender is going to be pretty good, being able to hit stuff out of the hand. And Thought Knot Seer, it's less good on the draw than it is on the play, but those two kind of targeted hand aid cards are totally reasonable here.
All right, players going to get ready for the second game. We're going to take some with the Star City Games creature collection. A lot of these are based on our game night, at your favorite animals from Star City Games game night. We also have more of them available at the store. So we have the ferret here. These are available on playmats, sleeves, and player bundles. They are on sale now, so you may want to head over and check those out. Of course, you see our ferrets all dressed up. And then Fintuition, it is our December creature, game night prize as well. You can get that on your sleeves and playmat. I've cast a good Intuition before. This thing's pretty, I could get behind this one.
Yeah, this is a card in Grixis Cube.
Right, you find cards with 3 different names. Nope, not at all. And put them right, they pick one and I get...
They pick one, the other 2 go in the graveyard.
It's this weird demonic tutor. A mulligan from Rudy Briksza, Matthew Tickal keeping on 7. Now for Matthew Tickal of Nerd Rage Gaming, from Minneapolis, Minnesota, he has 3 open top 8s. Still looking for that win. Last season was very close to the Players' Championship, but did fall short. He's been relatively quiet this year in 2016.
Claims that he will sing along with Disney songs regardless of social situation. What he means is when Eric Hawkins does so first.
Yeah, works as a cabinet finisher. Something I've learned actually about Matthew Tickal, him being on the tour the last 2 years. He takes his buffets more seriously than anyone I've ever met.
There's a man that loves a buffet.
Like, not just the value behind it. Value plays them more than anyone I've met.
If you ask the question, what kind of person gets to go buffet food, the answer is Matt Tickal.
Yeah. Managed to go turn to Servant of the Conduit from Rudy Briksza. I think his biggest accomplishment, he said in 2016, achieved double hot status from Chipotle, which is there's a deal if you ate 10 burritos a month, you get this big prize at the end of the year. So he did 20 a month instead, and then got double the prize.
It was actually 11, so he did
22. Oh my, yeah.
And it can only be 1 a day.
That's so gross. He said it's so much value. So players trade Servant of the Conduits for Rudy Briksza. He casts his turn 3 as Attune with Aether and Whirler Virtuoso. The 2/3, I suppose the virtuoso of making Thopters.
Checks out.
That's so many burritos. So 22 a month, and I can't have 2 a day. I have to.
Can't have, with 2 cards, I think it gets different. He might have gamed the system a little bit.
So the prize is what, that you get a big catered meal of burritos, right?
Yeah. Food for 20 is the claim.
So I actually knew this. His plan is to get them all and then separate them into the ingredients and then freeze them and then eat Chipotle every day for another 4 months on top of that.
I think that'll last him about a week at the clip he's on.
It's just, this is what I mean when we say it goes deep on value. it's out of hand. We're on Tickal's turn here. Casts he had a Cryptolith, or traverse the Ulven Vault for a island. This is his 3rd turn. A lot of setup from both players, but if the setup's happening, I kind of like the player with the Aetherworks Marvel. Tickal's turn 3 will be a copy of Catacomb Sifter that brings along a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion.
And Tickal is tapped off of negate mana, so we'll see if Rudy's able to produce that Marvel.
Yeah, does he have the marvelous play here? He does not. He has Harness Lightning, Ulamog. That's it right now. You see Rudy not making Thopters at all, just leaving that energy.
Yeah,
he just passes the turn.
That's not for Thopters.
Not in this matchup.
I can't really trade with anything that he cares about. That's not what we're doing.
Matthews draws another Traverse the Ulven Vault. He'll cast it. You see he actually is having to traverse for his land every turn here.
That's really the strength of the Traverse the Ulven Vault. Of course, this is not what you want to be doing, but in a pinch, just lets you hit your land drops.
He could have gotten Plains, but instead gets Wastes here.
Well, it's a better land.
This deck's great. Huge fan. You see Thought Knot Seer and Negate both in his hand.
Curious how many colorless cost Tickal has in hand. He does have that Scion, which can make a mana for 1 Thought Knot Seer.
And I like this. He casts Smuggler's Copter and passes with Negate up.
Yep.
Big fan. Good discipline by Matthew Tickal. The draw from Rudy Briksza, though, Ishkana, the Graph Widow. He does have the mana to cast her, but no Delirium. And he'll pull the trigger on anyway. Here's the 3/5 Spider. and he passes.
Get something to block that copter, just buying time until he can go over the top in a big way.
All right, I don't know what to think about all this creature combat going on right now. There's just too much of it. Thought Not Seer from Matthew Tickal. He sees the hand from Rudy. It is Chandra, Harness Lightning, and Ulamog.
He has the negate to cover either of these threats. The Chandra is worth more mana. The Ulamog's right out. That costs 10. There's no way that we're reaching for that one.
Yeah, and especially because Matthew has another Thought Knot in hand. You almost want to take the Harness Lightning. Because if you take the Chandra and Rudy draws 2 Harness Lightnings, you might pay a price.
Yep.
Or if he draws Harness Light, right?
The Lightning is more efficient. You want to be able to just negate the Chandra, eat Rudy's whole turn, and not have your Thought Knot Seer die.
Takes Chandra. So Rudy has a draw here to get double kill spell. Draws Mountain.
And, you know, Rudy,
Yeah.
with the instant also, he gets to force Tickal to use a negate on his own turn.
And he'll pass. There was an argument there. I guess he could have end-stepped, gone for Harness Lightning, or just done it main phase, and then if it works, he could have drawn a Marvel.
It's possible that Tickal just doesn't care if his Thought Knot dies as well.
Cryptolith Right is the play for Matthew Tickal. He'll go, that is a ton of mana.
And actually, it looks like Tickal has his second Thought Knot Seer in hand. I guess he has 3 after sideboards. It could just be like looking to have this one die in combat and then get a look at something besides Ulamog to actually strip from Rudy's hand.
And this is interesting. So Matthew is building a large mana and creature advantage, but it's not converting yet into damage, right? Ishkana's doing just a great job.
I don't know how you beat a 3/5.
Bunch more creatures, I suppose. We'll see.
Bigger than any creature I ever play.
Matthew Tickle's going to cast Distended Mindbender, and this makes sense. This is why he was setting up. That's why he took the card he did. Rudy's going to, in response, try to Harness Lightning something. Remember, the Mindbender's still on the stack, so he can't pick that. Looks like he goes for Thought Knot Seer. Now, Tickle might let this resolve.
Yeah, the Mindbender not very effective. I mean, obviously, Harness Lightning is a 2-mana card.
Yeah.
Oh, and Rudy picked up a different 2-mana card off of that Thought Knot Seer.
So they both went. Yeah, then the Mindbender still took all of Rudy's cards. He will cast another Whirler Virtuoso, 3 energy, and pass to Matthew Tickle. We go back to Tickle's turn. Now gets to untap with a lot of mana here. Can't imagine he'll be taking down Negate again. He's going to cast Pilgrim's Eye. He's a card he's a huge fan of. That's something Matthew Tickle's shown a lot of devotion to in Standard this year. Eldrazi Displacer and Pilgrim's Eye, I've seen him in his lists more than anyone else.
Yep. Pilgrim's Eye, you know, it did eventually catch on in Delirium. We have that in the green-black deck, but Tickle is casting it just as an honest creature. He's not trying to get up to Delirium really at all. He just wants to get all of his mana. He has some pretty demanding casting costs in his deck, even reaching in for specified colorless mana. So the Pilgrim Eye serves a very vital role in this deck.
Yeah. He's successfully fending off all of Rudy's game plan, but he's got to win at some point here, or start dealing damage rather, because Rudy's late game is better. You see another Smuggler's Copter from Matthew Tickle and passes the turn.
Now that he has the Mindbender, he has more profitable attacks. He can actually eat the Ishkana, though with the Virtuosos over there, Rudy can throw some Thopters into the mix.
Rudy's drawing Ulamog. That one's a ways off. He only has 6 mana sources right now. Eldritch Evolution, Thought Knot Seer, and Negate in hand for Matthew. All right, Ryan. So here's a card that can tutor for literally everything on this list in front of you. What are we doing?
Tickle does have an infinite combo in his deck.
Yes, that's the Brood Monitor, Displacer, Zulapur Cutthroat.
Yep,
he's got none of those in play.
All of the pieces. He hasn't been attacking, which leads me to believe that he kind of wants to build towards this combo. Eldrazi Displacer is generally the most important creature in his deck, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him just evolution to find a Displacer. But he also might just wait to see if he can build towards that combo. I guess Duskwatch Recruiter to start looking for pieces would be a good one to find as well.
Yeah, I mean, he could, if he turns one of these Smuggler's Copters, say, and he's going to turn Servant of the Conduit, it looks like, into something else. If he makes him into an Eldrazi Displacer, he does have a Thought Knot in hand, so he can start blinking Thought Knot, and that could be pretty good against the ramp deck. Yeah, he's going to get Eldrazi Displacer and has not just 3, mind you, but 6 mana up.
Yep. Can blink that Pilgrim's Eye, get some more lands.
Yeah, now, Cryptolith Right does not let a creature tap for colorless. Yeah,
right,
so
just colored mana.
Matthew's going to cast the Thought Knot Seer and say go. And during Rudy's draw step, this is huge. He's going to blink the Thought Knot Seer using Displacer. So Rudy draws a card and Matthew takes one. He exiles away the Aetherworks Marvel that Rudy had drawn.
That was excellent.
And you're going to expect more of that to come.
Yeah. In Rudy's deck, almost everything he's up to is at sorcery speed, and with that negate to cover something like a Harnessed Lightning on the Displacer.
Beautiful.
Tickal just needs to find a way to break through, and he has one of his combo pieces in play now. He could theoretically win the game that way.
So he's going to try to win by a prison strategy here, you think? The Thought Knot plus Displacer?
He actually has to close the game, so I think that he's basing any action other than blanking Rudy's draw step on the top of his deck. He doesn't really have a good way to beat down just yet, but this allows him so much time.
Rudy gets to draw. Tickal lets him draw. Then goes for the blink. So a draw and an exile and Marvel and World Breaker. This is, I mean, I think he's got to get rid of the World Breaker.
The World Breaker looks like Rudy has 6 mana sources in play, but yeah, you want to exile that one.
Marvel gets negated. Matthew was saving that one. Rudy back down to 0 cards. Both players playing off the top of the deck, but a big advantage for Matthew Tickal.
Yeah. With a negate out of hand, there's a little bit more pressure on Tickal to actually start winning the game. He now only has 1 card covered because of the Thought Knot Seer. You can blink again if you have 2 colorless mana once you see that.
During draw step, he does the same trick and exiles an Ishkana for Rudy. Rudy draws and says go. So the trick here, what's happening if you haven't seen this interaction, is Thought Knot's leaving play and coming back. And since it all happens in one trigger, there's 2 triggers on Thought Knot Seer. When it enters the battlefield, he looks at Rudy's hand and exiles a card, and when it leaves, Rudy draws a card. So he's waiting, and during Rudy's draw step, he's doing this. And because Matthew controls the triggers, he's stacking them so that Rudy draws a card, then draws a second one, and that has that off the Thought Knot, and then we do the exile. So he's doing those triggers in reverse of how you'd normally see them. So basically, Rudy draws 2 a turn, and Matthew exiles one of the 2.
And amusingly, Tickal has an abundance of mana, but still just 1 colorless source. You don't want to put 2 wastes in your deck, though he has gone through multiple ways where he could find a second copy if it was available.
Yeah, he would certainly do it if he had one. And this Ishkana is doing a lot of work. There's a Smuggler's Copter, or 2 of them actually in play for Matthew Tickal. They have not been crewed at all this entire game. And upkeep. This is pretty big. Matthew Tickal goes for the same play. Harnessed Lightning drawn by Rudy, so the Eldrazi Displacer is gone. The lock piece is gone.
And now Tickal's actually starting to be in a little more trouble. Rudy's deck is more likely to deliver something that will break this game open than Matt's at this point.
Yeah. Draw from Tickal is Servant of the Conduit. Not much help just yet. He'll say go. Land from Rudy. So who can draw some action first? Tickal draws here. Draws another Servant of the Conduit. Nothing there for him. He'll go up to 5 energy. Replacing a sleeve. Maybe not 5 energy. May have missed that trigger. Not that it really matters for him. Both players are playing very quickly here.
Yep.
Harness Lightning on Thought Knot Seer. That one's down. Rudy draws another card. Is it something big? He's got a lot of big top decks. It's Aetherworks Marvel. Yeah, that's something big indeed. Spins the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No Eldrazi's, but he's got the choice of Chandra or Tireless Tracker. He'll go for Chandra. And may just start plussing her. Exiles the top card. It's a land. He's not going to play it this turn, so Matthew takes 2 down to 18.
All right, now Rudy's in very good shape.
Botanical Sanctum for Tickal. That does not do it. Land and says go. It is back to Briksza. He only has 4 energy right now. Not too hard for him to get more, though. Evolving Wilds, that'll get him up to 5 energy. Ooh, we're getting there. I suppose he could suicide some creatures in, and if Tickal blocks any, he gets an energy.
Yeah, with the Chandra, he builds that up towards its its emblem for 7 loyalty. You force either Tickal to start attacking into you, maybe making some trades that way, or you can even start attacking Tickal as well if you wanted to make energy, though I expect Rudy to just sit back.
Yeah, Chandra plus got him a free card. It was Tireless Tracker. Ishkana the draw for Matthew Tickal. That's would have been good a while ago, but nothing now. You see, we're getting toward that 7. It's an emblem of whenever you cast a spell, the emblem deals 5 damage to target creature player. Well, that wouldn't take very long for Rudy to win the game. But for right now, he has 3 Ishkana Spiders that came along with the 3/5. Passes, and it looks like a big draw from Rudy. Cinder Glade will be exiled. He cannot cast that. 5 energy. Can he make it 6? He sure can. Here's Harnessed Lightning. I'm assuming he'll leave some of that left back for the Marvel.
Yeah.
Kills a Spider. Up to 6 energy. Taps Marvel. Spends all 6. Let's go for the top cards. 1, 2. There's an Emrakul. There's 2 Kozilek's returns. There's an Ishkana. Emrakul. He'll get Tickle's next turn.
They'll be able to use this to get some of these pesky flyers out of the way. Should make it difficult, if not impossible, for Tickle to break through and stop this Chandra from embling. Not to mention that the Emrakul is looking pretty close to lethal on its own.
Rudy drained him for 3 on end. Matthew was drained him for 3 on end step, and now Rudy will play Tickle's turn. It's got just creatures. I guess there's not too much damage that can be done here, other than making everything kill itself.
Yeah, the copters can cost Tickle to discard anything good that might be on the top of the deck.
Yeah, he's going to do that. We are going to a third game. Rudy Briksza evens it up at 1 apiece. Now, Ryan, for a second there, actually for a while, I thought we were going to see a 2-0 win for Matthew Tickle. He successfully, he set up the lock, the soft lock of Displacer plus Thought Knot. He had a negate in hand. His deck was doing what it wanted to do, but then it didn't work.
The story of this game is that Tickle was only able to produce 1 colorless source, and it was the one that he tutors for. If he had drawn any of his 4 Aether Hubs, he could have won that game very easily.
So how would that work?
Double Displacer activation really changes the way that everything works. You can either displace the Thought Knot Seer again to get any kind of sorcery speed removal, or even just have more activations of the Displacer against some kind of removal spell. The Displacer can't displace itself, but you can displace the Thought Knot Seer multiple times. That would have allowed him to save his negate for the Harness Lightning instead of using it on an Aetherworks Marvel.
All right. We're going to get ready for the game number 3. Now, over StarCityGames.com, we're running our weekly sale. So we have one of these each week. It's a different thing on sale. Right now, it is 15% off thousands of different non-English cards on the store. So if you want, say, your Zodiac Dragon from Portal 3 Kingdoms, boom. Yeah, that guy's pretty good. We have that on sale over at the store. So that'll be running all weekend. And we have a new sale every Monday at 11 in the morning. So make sure to check us out next week and see what else you have on sale, and head over to stock up on cube cards, perhaps. Or
yeah, a lot of Commander players like to play the foreign editions of their cards, definitely.
Now for Rudy Briksza, last year he was at the Players' Championship, 8 open top 8s and 2 wins. Still looking for his first top 8. The 27-year-old from Baltimore, Maryland, a former soccer player and tattoo enthusiast. One thing about him, his playstyle is Rudy very much likes like 3 or 4 color good card decks. You know, really made a name playing Esper Deathblade back when that was good in Legacy.
I mean, can you blame a guy for liking good cards?
No, I mean, yeah, it's
pretty reasonable as far as like ways to personalize yourself. It's a pretty good way to go.
He likes the like modular style decks where it's not real, I have these good cards and I will accumulate enough power over the course of the game that I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
Game number 3, Matthew Tickle back on the play. He starts off on Servant of the Conduit on turn number 2, bringing him up to 3 energy thanks to that Aether Hub.
And Rudy still looking for that mountain off his Evolving Wilds. These players are playing quickly. They definitely don't want to produce a draw here.
Yeah, what it seems like last game is that, where this is a tough match for Tickle, is that I don't know how he wins. I know how Rudy wins.
Yeah.
That's pretty, he taps Aetherworks Marvel, and then good things happen.
If all things are otherwise equal, if we can see things progress the way they did in Game 2 here in Game 3, Tickle has the Aether Hub here. This game could easily go to Tickle instead of Rudy if he can start getting double Displacer activation. He needs those pieces from here.
For Briksza, the turn 2 play was Tormenting Voice. He discarded a copy of Chandra. Matthew, back to him. Traverse the Ilfin Vault. For a land and then Eldrazi Displacer. Okay, sure, he's shortcutting here so that telling Rudy what he's going to do.
Tickle already has the basic Wastes in hand. He has a Blooming Marsh. Yeah, so probably a basic island is going to be the find.
Or plains, I suppose. Whirler Virtuoso for Briksza, up to 3 energy. Rudy has 2 copies of Aetherworks Marvel, or at least 1 copy of Aetherworks Marvel ready. He's short on energy right now. Mm-hmm. So he makes the 2-3 here. We go back over to Matthew Tickle's turn. Thanks to Eldrazi Displacer, he could just attack into this Virtuoso.
Yeah.
If Rudy tries to, and he will. Here's a swing. No blocks. Rudy goes to 17. If Rudy tried to double block with the Thopter, that activation would get him real good.
And Tickal would love it if Rudy spent some energy here.
So Matthew's going to play. Oh, wow, this is big. Servant of the Conduit and then Eldritch Evolution in the same turn, sacrificing a Servant. Getting maybe Thought-Knot here, or is he going to go for that lock again?
I would expect him to. But bad news as Rudy lays his hand down.
Yeah, it is. Looks like we have a Marvel, 2 Marvels, a Chandra, a Vessel, and 1 Eldrazi. Looks like it might be World Breaker.
I suppose, actually no, that's a Cinderglade, so Rudy with a double Marvel, he'll be able to Marvel next turn.
Well, he's got to just take the Chandra, otherwise Thought-Knot dies.
That's also a problem. Yeah, you can't just take a Marvel in the face of double Marvel.
Yeah, this was a pretty aggressive Thought-Knot for Matthew Tickal.
Well, if it's just 1 Marvel, this is great. Because you take him off.
He loses it to the Chandra.
So what? He loses he doesn't lose the game to a Marvel.
Okay, all right, it's fair. I guess if things are really that bad. All right, so he takes the Chandra, leaving Rudy with 2 copies of Aetherix Marvel, and Rudy will just cast one. Says go. Doesn't have the energy yet, but he will eventually. Pressure is on Matthew Tickal. Can he win this in time? Reflector Mage, Botanical Sanctum, 1 other in hand for Tickal. He has 3 cards. He actually has a lot of power worth of creatures in play. There's some merit if he can cast it. I don't know if he has the blue source to just playing Reflector Mage and jamming.
I mean, there's already the Marvel there. There's a ton of ways for Rudy to get those extra energy to go off. And if you're not winning the game quickly, that Marvel will bury you. And he already knows about World Breaker back up down the line.
So Thought-Knot and Displacer swing. Rudy chump blocks with the Virtuoso. Goes down to 14, and more importantly, goes up to a 4th energy from the Marvel. Upkeep. Matthew's going to do that same trick we've seen before. And Rudy, in response, will cast Kozilek's Return. This is actually a little surprising. Matthew will float mana in response. And, oh, Rudy's left up green. Okay, he has Attune with the Aether. So hand, Marvel, World Breaker, Attune, and Vessel. Yeah, he's got, Tickle's going to take the Attune. He can't let Rudy get up to 6 energy.
Yeah. And Rudy casts that return there because the Seer, of course, does exile with that in the graveyard. If he's able to find an Ulamog or an Emrakul, he'll be able to clean up Tickle's board.
Plays Vessel. Rudy's at 14. There's 7 power in play for Matthew Tickal. It's a 2-turn clock. And it looks like Traverse the Ulfin Vault for Matthew Tickal. Does he have Delirium? It's a big question. He does not, just gets a Plains. I was going to say, he could have gone for something like Mockery of Nature if he had Delirium. So he swings for 7, puts Rudy to 7, then blinks. Servant of the Conduit is a draw. I don't think Matthew can let him have that one either.
Well, Servant and second Marvel both produce 2 energy, so this is bad for Tickal.
Takes Servant, so yeah, it's going to have to be a second Marvel for Rudy Briksza. Goes for it. Does Matthew have a response? It works. That's 6 energy, and this is the big moment. Can he hit an Eldrazi? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And on the last card, Rudy finds Ulamog, and it could not have been sooner. It will go ahead and get the Kozilek's Return to the graveyard, sweep up Matthew Tickal's creatures, exile 2 of his lands, draw Rudy a card, and likely wins him the game.
That's going to set Tickal way back. There's some incentive for Rudy to go for the waste on the Aether Hub just to turn off any potential displacer shenanigans, but Tickal's so low on lands, it's very unlikely to matter. And here he just took Tickal completely off of black mana.
Thought-Knot Seer the play for Matthew Tickal. It's not over just yet, though. Attune and World Breaker in hand for Briksza.
Get that World Breaker out of here.
Yeah, you cannot let that happen. And he'll pass. Rudy will crack Vessel. Gets another. Okay, just lands, but it's an Evolving Wild, so he's up to 1 energy. We're going to keep a count there. This matters. Aether Hub, and Matthew's done it. He's got himself another turn here. Attune with Aether gets Rudy up to 3 energy. Not enough to fire up the Marvel again.
Yeah.
So he can play that. He can sacrifice an Evolving Wilds. That puts him to 4. Then he's done.
He's got a lot of live draws to get him there, but he won't be able to do it without something off the top.
Here's a swing. It exiles 20 cards from Matthew's deck. That's not enough to kill him, but Matthew is somewhere in that less than 40, greater than 20 range.
Yep.
So it's going to get over half his deck. One more of those hits, and it'll be the rest of the library. Aether Hub puts Rudy to 4 energy. Reflector Mage bounces Ulamog. A swing for 4. Rudy is down to 3. Can he draw 1 card? Evolving Wilds puts him to 5 energy. Can he get the 6th?
What do you got, Rudy?
We didn't catch it just yet. Sigarda.
That's a blocker.
Okay. 2 blockers, actually. He has enough mana to cast Sigarda and use her ability once. He has Hexproof. He certainly has cards to exile to make soldiers.
Yep, and indiscriminately any card type, that'll make a 1/1 just fine.
Now we're on Matthew Tickal's side. Plays an Aether Hub. Servant of the Conduit, okay. Restoration Gearsmith from Matthew, of course, why not? Gets back Eldrazi Displacer.
This is a great draft deck.
Says go. Rudy's going to make a human. And remember, Sigarda is very good at this. She can make an army in no time. A draw from Rudy. And it's a big one. It's Aether Hub. That's his 5th energy? 5th energy.
Well, it's his 9th land this turn, and he has a 10th land, so he can actually cast the Ulamog next turn.
Sure, we don't need Marvel. And humans from both sides. So Matthew plays out the rest of his hand.
Yeah, Rudy's making a bunch of humans here, but he can just trigger Kozilek's Return on his turn. Suppose he just has the advantage with his Sigarda. Why mess that up?
Yeah, untapped land Ulamog and Kozilek's Return in his yard. That will wipe away the whole board again. And that'll be game and match for Rudy Briksza. His Teamer Aetherworks deck finishes the perfect 4-0 for the standard rounds.